Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's Mashreq Sustainability Dialogues podcast, where we take a deeper dive into this massive push that we're seeing across the region towards sustainability, trying to cover some insights for stakeholders to help navigate their journey ahead. Today's topic that we're addressing is green and smart. How can AI advance sustainability? We're joined here today with our host, Amith, Rajan, Executive Vice President of Mashreq, and our two special guest speakers, Melda, Akin, CEO and founder of D14.ai, and Jimmy Thatcher, Director of Data Science and AI for Digital Energy. Thank you all for joining the show. I just want to first kick off with our host, Amith, to give you the opportunity for opening comments on this, I would say, critical question that we're tackling today.
Thank you, and hi everyone. It is my absolute honor and pleasure to welcome our guests to the Mashreq Sustainability Dialogues. As we were just discussing, very, very impressive guests. I look forward to an engaging and thoughtful conversation on this topic. And it is a topic that is of massive importance, not just to the region, but to the globe. We have COP28 coming up. This topic is only going to gather more heat as the year progresses. And, AI is the new buzzword today, right? Wherever you look now, you've got ChatGPT and its various derivatives. And AI is now the most happening thing. But I think that in this particular topic, AI is actually doing a lot already. We are looking at seeing companies around the region use AI and machine learning around important initiatives like carbon capture, storage, in agri-tech on how water consumption is mapped and how plants and fields should be watered. We're looking at how to map energy demand, and I'm sure Jimmy will talk a lot about that. And we're looking around transportation and how machine learning can be used to design better transportation networks. So we're obviously then, we've got partnerships, and I think the Dubai and the UAE government is doing a lot in building those partnerships and fostering that with capital and access to thought leaders. So I'm looking forward to a fantastic conversation. And again, welcome to our guests, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Amith. Melda, I just wanted to first kick off with you. Again, how can AI advance sustainability? I think that we're seeing so many AI headlines today that tends to get kind of washed down a bit, but I'd like to get your opening comments on that and where you see the current state of play.
Thank you very much, Brian, again for hosting me. So, when the technology advanced, actually we start using a lot of tools and a lot of softwares for the processes. So especially once we say sustainability, that word actually touches many points, starting from the weather, and then the normal life and how we can have a sustainable life. So first of all, what we all need, all humanity, we want to have more time and we want to make informed decisions, and how it would be possible. So once we to look at on that side, that much machines and then the softwares, and we keep creating and we keep developing the data. Can you imagine, in 2022, it was a 94 zettabytes data we've generated. I really wonder, when I read the statistic, I thought maybe they made a typo. But when I start looking at it, and I said, okay, this is actually billions and then trillions of dollars. So currently, we have been actually having a climate change that's affects many countries, and we don't have the balance as we used to before. When we were kids, the world wasn't like that. Even, in the sun, for example, Middle East, we're living in a beautiful place. It's always sunny. So we need to find a way how we can, to manage this our water sources and how we can make this more sustainable way. And the other side of the world is different. But what I see to, briefly, I think with all these scientific approaches and implementation, we have been doing well and saving the world in a better place.
Thank you, Melda. I'd like to introduce Jimmy as well into this. Obviously, as we mentioned, we have the COP28 coming up, the energy COP. Oil, gas, energy companies, of course, trying to maximize efficiency, energy security, while at the same time making that transition to decarbonization. From your point of view overall, how do you see that AI can play a role in that sustainability pathway?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different answers to that, and the big answer for me would come down to how do you optimize the supply chain? The reason is because the supply chain is 80% of emissions, right? Worldwide, 80%. Now, look at the situation of the UAE, right? Produce energy, export, right? So first, how do you do that as efficiently as possible, right? And then secondly, import lots of goods, right, for the people who live here. So then how do you do that as efficiently as possible, right? So that's the two big strategic imperatives I think that the UAE needs to answer in order to really advance with sustainability. So you can look at all these different approaches for supply chain sustainability or supply chain optimization, and I don't want to get into the specifics, but we can talk in general terms that you can do this in two ways. The first is the different parts of the supply chain, recycling, manufacturing, shipping, your logistics, your driving, right? You can optimize that, right? You can optimize that. But then there's a larger conversation that needs to take place at a higher level about how do you optimize all those various parts of the supply chain, right?
Where would you see the region currently in looking at that point of view from supply chains? I feel like we're kind of silent in a lot of things, but what would your overall grade be at the moment, and how can we improve that?
I'd say it's hard to give a grade because no one is necessarily good at this yet, because it is brand new, right? And then you need to consider, okay, we have scope 3, and you're going to have a regulatory framework around scope 3 emissions, right? You're going to have a regulatory framework around that. So all that needs to be taken into account. But in general, I think the UAE is not at the head of the pack, not at the back of the pack. I think probably somewhere in the middle, with the capability to advance very quickly to the head of the pack if they make the right moves.
Amith, of course, all this takes collaboration and partnerships in order to achieve. Where do you see that current ecosystem at the moment? How is Mashreq playing a role in the region in terms of partnerships, from advancing sustainability, technology adoption, and of course ESG, which Mashreq's been doing a lot of work in that perspective?
Correct. So I think, like Jimmy said, right, it's nascent. So we feel that with COP27 in the region and COP28 happening in the UAE, there has been a significant uptick, both in terms of awareness and in terms of real initiatives. There's real money now coming into these initiatives rather than sort of talking about a wish list. So in Mashreq, and I agree with Jimmy, right, there's a lot of sustainability around supply chain financing that we can really make more efficient and drive down the emissions. So we, in fact, in January, we had a sustainably linked supply chain financing event in Dubai, and it was very well attended by almost 150 clients of ours, where we're discussing all these initiatives and we're talking about how we can make the supply chain more efficient, and more importantly, how we can measure the network and how,
yes,
that because if you can't measure it, you can't control it, you can't monitor it, you can't do much with it. So how do we measure and how do we put capital into those tools? And I believe AI will play a huge, or machine learning can play a huge role there. So that is one place where we're going. Over the past 2 years, Mashreq has done almost $15 billion worth of sustainable facilities, and we're a big believer in sustainable financing. We are working actively with our clients to both in terms of working capital lending as well as green bonds, etc. So there's a lot of work happening in that space. And like I said, we are working a lot with partners in the region, including the government agencies, to both in terms of driving measurement and in terms of driving outcome-based financing. So a lot of work happening in this region, and you'll hear more about this as the year progresses.
From a measurement perspective, obviously that requires understanding from a stakeholder and also buy into that, right? There's a sense of transparency and everyone's kind of along their own path. Are you seeing that buy-in, obviously from the adoption of technologies, but the transparency behind creating an ecosystem where you can confidently invest in these projects as well? Are you seeing that buy-in from stakeholders towards going towards measurement, or does that need to be accelerated?
Acceleration is always preferred. So, we can, however fast we go, the state of affairs means we need to go faster. So acceleration, that's I think something that we always need to push for. But yes, like I said, with the focus of COP28, we are definitely seeing more clients coming to the table. And it's all dependent on how we structure it and what the outcome is, right? So this is definitely a dialogue. And it is definitely a collaboration with our customers in terms of how do we structure the deal so that giving the right incentives drives the right behavior. So yes, there's a lot more conversations happening. There's a lot more discussion around the table, not just in the UAE, but in the whole region on how we can drive sustainability linked financing. We've done the largest deal in Bahrain last year. We've just done one very large deal in India. So it's not just in the region, it's all around.
Melda, just on that point, we're talking about measurements. You had mentioned data in your opening comments, and data is kind of the foundation, right? In order to help propel this acceleration, the ability to acquire it, to leverage it in this massive ocean of data that's going on. In terms of the buy-in and understanding behind that, even from a stakeholder level, whether you're a company or an individual, if you look at cognitive cities like NEOM, where do you see that state of play in terms of the buy-in of data, the trust behind the data, and the transparency? Obviously, we always see the positives, right? But how do you see that at the moment in terms of the way things are going?
Yeah, so, we all have been talking about how AI gonna change and the machine learning will be changing. And also there are a lot of news that we hear, okay, the AI doesn't, the machine learning and AI doesn't give a right answer, or there was a problem, it's not optimized. You guys said that efficiency gonna increase, but actually it's not working. So that kind of comments comes a lot. The reason, based on my experience, is the data generation and whoever, teach and then show the system machine learning work, it should be more homogeneous to be able to serve a wider population and to be able to understand more data point. Imagine, as the basic, if we do one system for Dubai, and if my, the test system, 100 people, it may not be, the homogeneous result. It's not going to work more. So, for example, one of the projects that we were actually working with the Saudi Arabia government, while we were, collecting some data points, we were pushing that, okay, we want to get maximum in the same format, in a structured way that we can get in. So that will be, the part that will be opening our eyes and giving more solid, more structured, and then real-time results. So we will have a chance to measure it. So, the going forward and to keep improving from the system.
Is there a pathway for standardization of data in order, if we're looking at sharing and collaboration, or is that still something that we need to strive for? Are you seeing any progress in that aspect?
So we are actually a big fan of optimization. What the service that we do, it's an optimization service. So for example, there are other organizations, the 5-10 years ago, we weren't maybe talking about that one. Some companies, they just get in organization, they look at the process, how they can make it efficient and make it, smarter. And then the other comes that starts talking about, the data points. And during that searches and then the studies, sometimes they find that, actually we can generate more data and we can automate and increase our efficiency, decrease our costs. But however, our systems are desynchronized and we have to make them whole, the one holistic approach to get together to, to have a better result. So when these companies also start making this data in a structured way and this all data connection, and then where we land in as an optimization company. So this is, our expertise side. So the main bottleneck for us and the sustainability sector as well, as we are not a software company or the data point collection, we need, some partners to make this main work to get in, because it's insane. Everyone talks about digital transformation. Okay, let's put on a data science, let's do machine learning, but where is the step one? So this is important.
Jimmy, I just want to bring you in on that as well. The energy sector, oil and gas as well, competitive collaboration, sharing data is critical from production to distribution and marketing. There are some platforms, I think, you have ODSU maybe, where you get production data that's hosted by Schlumberger. But where do you see that progress made? Do you think the energy sector is moving forward with that collaboration around data, or are we still kind of at the ABCs phase and understanding what that data is and how to implement it for the sector?
Well, yeah, it's good. So actually, I want to go back and just talk about one thing.
Sure.
I think we've been talking about structured data, the need for standardization, and that's all true for kind of the old breed of machine learning models. I'm going to be a bit controversial, right? If you look at what's here now, right, with your large language models, but with your models like ChatGPT, right, that's going to change the game. It's going to fundamentally change the game because it's going to make it where you don't necessarily need to standardize these data sources and all this data that's unstructured, that's text, the way we normally talk and think and act. All of a sudden, that's there.
But you need the right mechanisms in terms of harvesting data and recording that data, I imagine, first in order to filter it through something like that type of program, right?
Sure, yeah, but we have it, right? Like a lot of data is unstructured. That's what makes these models so powerful, is they can use all that unstructured data, right? Structured data, I agree, it's hard to get, and then to answer your other question about standardization, where's the industry in standardization? Okay, they're certainly not the best, right? They're not like the hospitals, which are by far the worst. They're somewhere like middle of the pack, and they are taking the right steps. They are moving in the right direction. It is happening slowly, but I do think that the advance in AI that we're seeing right now is going to just disrupt all of this need to standardize and need to. I mean, because look at what you can do. For instance, I think Melda opened the comments with a very powerful point about people. And then I talked about supply chain, but who drives supply chains? It's people. So you need to change people somehow, right? You need to change the behaviors that's driving all this consumption. Well,
where do you see, just on that partnerships question, how do you see that playing a role at the moment, from your perspective in the energy sector, to get to this next stage? Do you think, even if it's unstructured, partnerships are still required in order to turn the dial?
Yeah, partnerships are going to be required because the software companies have the data in a lot of cases, right? Say your S&P, your Halliburtons, right? Your other big companies have so much data that's part of that puzzle that you need to put together.
Absolutely. And are you seeing those partnerships accelerate, or are you still seeing some competitiveness among?
It's hard to say. It's different in different regions of the world. I think in general, yeah, you are seeing probably more competitiveness right now than compatibility. We're playing the same game, and that's really being driven by the value of the data that is being set on by these companies, right? And it's proprietary data. Sometimes it's very important.
More valuable than the oil itself, right?
I don't know if it's more valuable than oil yet, but it's
one day maybe
headed that way.
It's the new oil.
At least not right now with the price
it's
spike.
The new oil. Amith, I just wanted to bring you back in. This all kind of filters into creating an efficient, enhanced ecosystem to adopt technology, accelerate sustainability and meet our targets. But a core pillar of that, of course, is creating a culture of innovation that cultivates talent, right? How do you think industry can work better with stakeholders from your perspective in order to cultivate that talent? We have a younger generation that's up and coming, very tech savvy and pretty hungry. I think from a regional perspective, we still need to incorporate more of that youth involved in the way forward.
I agree. I think it's for anyone who's been in the data science or AI ML space in the last few years, they will testify to the difficulty in getting a good data scientist, right? I could sell a kidney and not hire one for the last 2 years. So it has been incredibly difficult to get good talent. And that's just not here, right? To say everywhere. And so I agree. I think one of the ways we can ensure that we get that talent pool is to sort of drive that innovation and curiosity in the youngsters. So like last year we did a hackathon with DIFC Academy, and we reached out. We got almost 43 universities in the region to apply to us, and almost 60 plus people, freshers and alumni applied. So it was a great experience. We gave them real world problems. They solved it, and the winner of the hackathon ended up joining us. So it's a good model. I think more people should do that. We should build that pipeline of talent in the region and get them excited with real world problems. I think one of the problems we have is it's difficult to differentiate the buzz with the real practitioners problems.
Very so applied versus theoretical.
Yeah, so people get lost in the buzz, right? And if you go to any fintech festival, you throw a stone and you'll hit an AI or ML shop. So it's like, but you go and speak to them, and there's very few use cases in the real world that they're working on. So in my mind, yes, it's important to bring that back together, and with real use cases and real problems to solve. I think this is one of the biggest problems on the globe. So it should not be difficult to get young minds to look at it. And I agree, the data is one of the biggest problems, right? It's 80% data and 20% of modeling in any data science problem. So
Melda, I just wanted to get your kind of point of view from that perspective as well. You're an entrepreneur, you've launched D14.ai, and of course, before that, digital transformation consulting as well. In terms of that talent pool, which is going to be necessary for the advancement of this technology and, of course, to accelerate our sustainability ambitions, where do you see that we're currently at in the region, and how can we attract more of that youth human capital?
Actually, this is one of the, I think, biggest challenge. So, this week is the International Women Days, and I'm, the speaking and tomorrow as well. So we're gonna launch something.
Congratulations as well.
Thank you for the female side. But I think, we need to go to the primary school, because the reason why I'm in tech, because of my family, my dad, the support and pushing me a lot. And nowadays, the tech is good, but it's good when we used for good. So the many kids and many students, they spend a lot of time for the basic stuff I want to classify as a time consuming, because whoever wants to have a career in tech side, especially AI, data science, machine learning, they need to know the logic, math, and understanding if their first language is not English, because there are a lot of resources available in English. So they have to to cross that barrier as well, and then keep learning. It's not the one thing, because every day, let's not not to say every day, but every month there is something new. And there is a new technology. So it's an ongoing, sustainable process that needs to, to learn. So the statistics shows, unfortunately, tech roles is going down because people, the teenagers goes in another phase. But what it can be done in a good way. Jimmy, I don't know, if we studied, the coding and then computer science as well. We were writing a code, guys, imagine there's a blank page. We were writing, then there was a button that run, and we were seeing the results. But now, when you write, actually the system says, do you want to say this? Do you want to use this process? So actually it's so easy. I think maybe, bringing this, the AI, data science, machine learning, to explaining to people and students in a simple way to make them believe that they can also do it, because it's not a rocket science. So when you study, it happens. When you think, it comes. It's not like, I think, in my opinion, wow, or only the computer scientist does.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to see all those headlines, AI, fourth industrial blockchain, all these buzz terms, and it does come across very rocket sciencey. But Jimmy, from your perspective as an organization, as you work with many companies as well, what's the first place to start at if you're looking to implement artificial intelligence? If you were today going to approach it, what is the first thing that you have to do in order to dive in and apply the right technologies?
I would say the very first thing you need to do is be specific about the problem you want to solve. Why and what business value will that drive? Don't start with the data. Don't start with, oh, how can we use AI? Right? That's the wrong approach. Sometimes you don't need AI. Sometimes you need advanced AI, right? So start with the business problem, understand how you can make an impact, how you can drive value, and then understand, okay, what data would I need in order to actually do this, right? And then I agree with Melda. I think the aspects around AI, the digital transformation, how you use it, how you drive value, how you drive impact, yeah, that's the difficult part of it. But actually, the implementation is not that difficult, right? And organizations can get there a lot sooner than they think, but they need to be realistic about the data they have, the problems they want to solve, and if AI can really offer a solution.
Are you seeing organizations fully understand the problems that they want to solve? I mean, on a daily basis, I see within ours, what is the problem actually does take some time to figure out.
No, I think all organizations struggle with exactly how to implement AI, right? Exactly what problems they want to solve and where they can make impact, right? And like I said, there's a range of technologies that you can bring into play in order to make impact. But I think that's something hard for all organizations.
Amith, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that as well. What would be your perspective of kind of where to start and what's that first stage before delving into application of AI and these technologies?
So I would definitely recommend you start with the why and what is the problem you want to solve. And to add on to what Jimmy and Melda mentioned, I would also stress on not make the perfect the enemy of the good. So most organizations struggle with the idea of starting small and building iteratively until they reach an end goal. Most organizations, would like to see a big bang sort of, this is what we want to do and let's see it happen. It doesn't work that way normally, and you have to be realistic, because a lot of AI and ML is experimentation. So a lot of times, we start with the why, we know what we want to do, but the first time the data scientist looks at the data, they might have no clue how to get from here to here. And so there is a lot of experimentation that happens, and there's a lot of wrong numbers that get dialed before they hit the before they hit it. And the second thing I would say strongly is that to have a successful implementation and application of AI ML, it needs to be a very strong collaboration between the business and the data scientists, right? The way I look at it, what makes a good data scientist a great data scientist is the understanding of how the business works. Because if I look at statistics or if I look at mathematics and modeling, I can pretty much make any story out of it. But does it make sense to the business? Does it make sense to the real world? Is that the way the real world works? So that crossing that bridge where you've got your story and your data telling you a number, or telling your numbers telling your story, and taking that and really using it in the real world are two completely different things.
Seems like 30 minutes actually goes by pretty fast. But I just want to start moving to closing comments. Melda, of course, starting with you, we have COP28 coming up, I believe, there might be 6-7 months left. It's going to be here tomorrow. What are you looking specifically to happen this year that really turns the dial on the adoption of AI and, of course, the scaling up of the technology in terms of sustainability as well?
I think, I would join Jimmy as well. He made me remember my university professor saying that defining the objective function, what the problem that we're going to solve, and then the rest going to follow.
Yeah. Jimmy, from your perspective as well, looking over the horizon, we have COP28 again. What do you think is going to be the next level of AI and where stakeholders are going for sustainability?
I think it's here now. It's just in its nascent phases, I believe, and that's the generative models that power things like ChatGPT. And the reason this is going to be such an interesting model is, okay, you can use all of the unstructured data, but one thing you're seeing a lot, it's given the wrong answer, it's given the wrong answer, yeah, because it's trained on everything. Train it on specific data. Train it on your company data. Train it on data around sustainability. Train it on data around scope 3. Then it becomes a very, very powerful tool for change. Right. And I think that's going to be the next big thing.
I just want to also bring back in Amith, of course, our host for today, to get your final thoughts and closing comments.
So thank you again, Brian, Melda, Jimmy. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for joining us. We've had a fantastic conversation. I think, like Brian said, time does fly by really quickly. And, we've discussed sustainable supply chains. We've discussed the people element. And I think that is one of the most important things, right? How do you change the culture? And that can take a lot of time. But I believe, it's becoming less of a luxury and more existential in the way the world is moving. And we sometimes forget how much AI and ML actually impacts us on a daily basis. Whether I'm ordering my food on an app, or I'm looking at buying a product on a website, or if I'm looking at the next movie on a streaming channel, AI and ML is there all around us in almost every part of what we do. So it is, but naturally, it's a matter of time before it comes into the sustainability function, and it's already getting there with the partnerships and the funding that we're getting from the government. We've discussed that. We've talked about data and how difficult it is to manage and measure. So. And finally, we spoke about talent building and talent pool, and which is the way forward to the future. How do we, pardon the pun, but build a sustainable pipeline of people who can actually take this forward? So it's been a fantastic conversation. I really thank everyone for it, and I look forward to more conversations on this topic as the year progresses.
Well, thank you again, Melda from G14.ai, Jimmy, Digital Energy, and of course our host Amith at Mashreq. For those who are listening and watching, please feel free to follow each individual on social media, where you'll get amazing insights throughout the year. And of course, Gulf Intelligence and Mashreq social handles, where we will publish this podcast and content harvested from it. But thank you everyone again for joining. Appreciate your insights, and I appreciate your time.